This is Informer News, your voice of the people. Timeline is Sunday the 28th of September 2014. Welcome along my friends to another edition of Informer News. Coming up in this week's broadcast, whistleblower warns that scientists, astronomers and people in the know regarding the imminent arrival of Planet X Nibiru have been bought off, as well as being threatened into silence, as to betray the elite would mean certain death or imprisonment and losing their golden tickets to the survival bunkers. Plus, Ebola warning, the death toll will rise to 20,000 victims within 9 months. Also, a new warning goes out. Yellowstone supervolcano is on the verge of exploding back to life. And Pine Gap, one of the most secretive US bases on the planet. Okay, into this week's news. This first report originates from ZetaTalk.com, the ZetaTalk newsletter, issue 411, and this was posted on Sunday, August the 17th, 2014, titled Ebola Outbreak. Ebola, a hemorrhaging virus, is indigenous to Africa and has few outbreaks, but they are greatly feared. It has a 90% death rate untreated, with survival, even when treated, less than 50% deadly, and no vaccine exists. Per the Zetas, Ebola came from the swamps of Central Africa. The 2014 outbreak is the most serious, the death rate the highest, and involves the most aggressive strain of Ebola. ZetaTalk description, the 15th of the 7th, 1995. It is indigenous in Africa, but the spate of recent flare-ups are because it is now also widely dispersed, no longer lying in the swamps, infecting lizards and snakes, which have little contact with humans, as they are not the food of choice, now resident in other hosts, such as rats and cockroaches, which mingle freely among humans. Why did Ebola not spread in this manner earlier? It did, but in an area not frequented by humans. Its original home was swamps, the last place humans live in when they are given a choice. Waterlogged, full of snakes and lizards, crawling with bugs, humid and unable to grow crops. The virus spreads in its normal method, but as the insects and rodents indigenous to these swamps are not adapted to other biospheres, the virus stays in the swamps. This virus not only refuses to be tamed, it is also now running free. Too late to put the cork back in the bottle. Africa is having her revenge on those who would own her. She has made herself undesirable. She has placed poison in her loins. It did not historically spread to mankind's cities, as when a village became infected, all died. But once out of the swamps, it can be spread. Per the Zetas, this is primarily through feces. There are also traditions in Africa where the grieving are to touch the dead. Ebola is spread through body fluids and requires moisture to survive. Containment is the goal during any outbreak, but containment has not happened during the 2014 outbreak, or is late being instituted. Patrick Swayze, returning to his home in Minnesota after visiting a sick sister in Liberia, was allowed to hop by plane through several countries before becoming too sick to travel in Nigeria. Thousands of people likewise travelling in airports are now feared exposed. Is containment now too little, too late? Also, a report put out by the Wall Street Journal that was posted by the World Health Organization claims that 20,000 people will die from the Ebola virus within 9 months. These following extracts originate from ZetaTalk.com, the ZetaTalk newsletter, issue 411, and this was posted on Sunday, August 17, 2014, titled Taiwan Sinking. The Zetas predicted a 20-foot loss of elevation in Taiwan as a result of the 7 of 10 plate movements. The Sunda plate is attached to the Eurasian plate, and as the Sunda plate is pulled down, it drags down the South China coast and portions of Taiwan. Taiwan is also affected by the tilting of the Philippine plate, which sinks on its western edge during the tilt. As Taiwan is situated on the western edge of the Philippine plate, this would explain why Taiwan is experiencing sinking, while the South China coastline has not as yet. Zeta Talk prediction, the 16th of the 10th, 2010. The southern coast of China was likewise warned that they could experience loss of elevation. How much will their coastline drop that they needed this warning from Hanghao UFO? This coastline in general can anticipate losing 20 feet in elevation, which will likewise afflict Taiwan, though Taiwan is high land and will not be as devastated. Zeta Talk prediction, the 19th of the 3rd, 2011. The folding of the Pacific plates that accompany the sinking of Indonesia during the 7 of 10 scenario involves, as we have explained, the Mariana and Philippine plates tilting and flattening westward. This is nothing more than an existing trend, so it is just a matter of the plates moving along faster in the direction they are already going. The Philippine plate likewise tilts its eastern side up, dropping its western side down. Reports from Taiwan indicate the island has already experienced significant elevation loss along its southwestern coastline. As this Po Shif Ning blog details, note that the portions of Taiwan predicted to experience elevation loss are the portions in this article: the southwest and west coastline region, Changhu County, Yunlin County, Qinghai County, and Pingtung County. By comparing modest satellite images from July 2010 to July 2014, one can see inundation is indeed more widespread. Double helix. Once again, Nibiru, aka Planet X, has been captured in an unfiltered photo at the 4 o'clock position. This is a photo on a Chinese website, captured July the 28th, 2014. That Planet X is increasingly showing up in unfiltered photos was detailed recently in issue 409 of this newsletter on August the 3rd, 2014. And the fact that the corpus of Planet X is increasingly visibility in filtered photos was recently detailed in issue 404 on June the 29th, 2014. The double helix appearance of the corpus has also become apparent recently, as detailed in issue 402 of this newsletter on June the 15th, 2014. How long will it be before the common man can just look up and point to this passing planet, visible in the sky to all? This following report originates from apfn.org, titled Pine Gap, Australia Secret Base. Pine Gap. The United States has 3 major bases in Australia. One is in southern Australia, Uranga, near Woomera, TN. Another in New South Wales, and the third, and by far the largest, is located within about 230 kilometres, 143 miles of the geographical centre of the continent, not far to the west of Alice Springs, Northern Territory. At the foothills of the southern slopes of MacDonnell Range, this base is completely underground, with barely visible entrances to the surface. This top-secret base is entirely financed by the United States government and is officially known as the Joint Defense Space Research Facility. When the JDSRF was first initiated, its aim was scientific research for the supposed development of space defense technology. It is now known that since its inception, its primary purpose was research into electromagnetic propulsion. What exactly is Pine Gap? As strange as it may seem, even Australian Federal Parliament members do not know. Among the cabinet members, only a small number of initiates have a vague idea of what this is all about. The only information source available to the public is the cross-checking done by private researchers such as Jimmy Gagged, following the statement made by the United States or Australian magazines. Always very short and terse paragraphs, and anything the locals may notice. It is said that under Pine Gap is the deepest drilling hole in Australia, about 5 miles, more than 8,000 meters. Such a hole is likely used as an underground antenna able to recharge the batteries of submarines in the Pacific and Indian Ocean through ELF broadcasts. Some say that Pine Gap has an enormous nuclear generator to supply energy to a new type of transceiver. It seems too that there is a high-powered, high-voltage plasma accelerator which may be put to use to transmit electric currents or even to produce a death ray or quite simply to feed a plasma gun. All this is not as incredible as it may sound. It is now known that the US base of Western Cape near Exmouth Gulf in Western Australia, Harold E. Holt USN Communications Station, has an older type of the transceiver used at Pine Gap, which is used to send electric current to submerged US submarines who trail a wire antenna. It is known that the electric currents transmit in this way are referred to as plasma dynamic cells. Several times locals have seen white discs about 30 feet in diameter in the process of being unloaded from large US cargo planes at the airport serving Pine Gap. Those discs have the USAF emblem on them. It seems likely that discs are assembled and based at Pine Gap. The number of discs seen at night leaves no doubt in anyone's mind. An amazing quantity of furniture has been delivered by plane from the United States. The locals also say that an enormous amount of food is stocked in warehouses of what could well be a true multi-leveled underground city. On the other hand, Pine Gap is well known as one of the most important control centers for spy satellites which circle the globe. An article published in late 1973 claimed that the Pine Centers for Spy Satellites which circle the globe. An article published in late 1973 claimed that the Pine Gap installation, along with its sister installation in Guam, the Pine Gap has enormous computers which are connected to their American and Australian central counterparts, which collect all the information secured in these countries, not only about finance and technology, but on every aspect of the life of the average citizen. Those computers at Pine Gap are also evidently connected to similar mainframes in Guam, in Krugersdorp, South Africa, and at the Amundsen Scott US base at the South Pole. Let's just say, incidentally, that the employees, more than 1,200 of the US base in South Africa, all claim to be members of the US consular mission in that country. It may be worthy of note that the Amundsen Scott base at the South Pole is located on a sensitive magnetic spot of our planet, that it holds exactly the same assets as Pine Gap, and that all the information about most of the average citizens of Western Europe is stored there in memory banks tens of meters under the ice pack. A statement made by the Australian Premier about 1987, assuring that France must disappear from the Pacific, from the Kerguelen Ridge and from Antarctica, sheds light on the importance of this polar base for the Anglo-Saxon world. The most disquieting fact about Pine Gap may be that employees working on the base, and especially those earmarked for the duty on electromagnetic propulsion projects, have undergone brainwashing and even implanted of intracranial devices. These employers have turned into unconditional slaves of their masters, whoever he is. Rather scary, isn't it? These following extracts that originate from a whistleblower about the current Nibiru situation. This is important stuff and should be taken very seriously. The info originates from a video posted by YouTube channel Michael AHGMX 10831 titled Nibiru Complex Composition of Knowledge. Here's what the whistleblower Arizona stated. This guy talks about why the scientists aren't saying anything. I guess nobody paid attention to what allegedly George Bush said before he left office, threatening every astronomer and scientist in the world. He said, if you say anything what you see in space, no comments, nothing. Because if you say anything, you will either do 20 years in prison or we will come and kill you. Now, if that is not enough motivation to shut them all up, I don't know what is. There ain't nobody that's going to put their asses on the line. The scientists are nothing but a pack of paid whores. NASA's nothing but a bogus operation for the Nazis. Just like the senator in Denver said, I have a ticket to the underground facility. Screw you guys. And they all have been promised tickets if they keep their mouths shut. And that's exactly what they are doing. Everybody out there needs to wake up and realize these people have been bought and they are not going to warn you. They don't want 10 million people screwing up their underground bunker facilities, and they are not going to say a damn thing about anything. Now, Arizona went on to state, Saturn is doing a 90-degree roll and Nibiru is really pulling on Jupiter, causing all kinds of problems. That means it is out there near Jupiter. Arizona claims we have something coming up in the eastern sky that you can see without binoculars or a telescope or anything. It comes up in the eastern sky every night and it's getting closer. You can see a group of planets around it and there is a big debris field beside it. It appears to be very close and getting bigger every night. It comes up on the eastern horizon every sunrise. It comes up about 6:30 to 7. Here in Colorado, there appears to be 2 Jupiters in the sky. Something is wrong with that. There can't be 2 Jupiters. Arizona states the following: there really is a lot of stuff going on out there. Do you have an open mind to look at it analytically and to decide what it is you are looking at? Because sometimes you're not ready for it. If you're not ready, maybe you shouldn't be looking yet. To view the full interview, go to my website, endtimes23.com, where I've posted the link. There's a live link to my website near the end of this video. This next report was posted on YouTube channel NWO Truth Channel and Tom Lupshu regarding an urgent update on Yellowstone supervolcano, and this was posted on the 2nd of September 2014. Okay, here's this very important info. I received a message from an individual, and it's not someone I know, but it's someone that knows me and is very informed of certain information that's coming out of Yellowstone. So the info I'm about to give you, I urge you to share everywhere. Get it out to your people. Get it out to everybody. And no matter what you do, have a plan. So the message I received is as follows. The seismology is showing the magma so close to the surface at Yellowstone now that I do not think we will survive the new full moon, which is on September the 9th, 2014. When I say Yellowstone, I refer to the vast magma cauldron that spans several states. End of message. Well, the 9th of September has come and gone. There was a 5+ earthquake that occurred that was seen on the Yellowstone live feed, which showed the ground moving on the horizon and the ground shaking and rising. This could well be part of the build-up to this catastrophic event. But I do urge you to take this warning seriously and be prepared. The Informer. This final report originates from somethingblue.hubpages.com, titled Earth Changes and Zeta Talk. Why Zeta Talk gets such a bad rep. How does the Earth Changes and Zeta Talk get such a bad reputation in certain circles? This is because any profound change in our lives, whether it is geographical, philosophical, health-related, educational or spiritual, requires commitment, willingness and adaptation. All three of these principles can cause anxiety, stress and hardship, but put together, they often cause an individual to shift the foundation of their beliefs. Those that have read my previous articles may recognize the term cognitive dissonance. For those that haven't, I will offer a quick explanation. To give credit where credit is due, this term was coined by the author Leon Festinger in his 1956 classical novel When Prophecy Fails, about a UFO cult that had to deal with the facts that the apocalyptic vision they all endorsed was not true. It is the discomfort one feels when commonly held beliefs become increasingly evident and recognized as untrue. This theory is one of the most influential and extensively studied concepts in modern social psychology, in large part due to the overwhelming evidence that the event of 9/11 could not have possibly occurred as our government portrayed it. I have yet to write a definitive article on this event, but I've run into many people that are simply unaware that Building 7 collapsed that day, and many are unwilling to believe that it did. For anyone that has experienced fundamental changes in their individual lives knows this can be a difficult process for a wide variety of reasons. Usually it comes about due to an educational or spiritual awakening, which can be difficult in itself. Because Zeta Talk offers such an overwhelming amount of data that can quite literally take days to read, recognize and assimilate, many well-informed people are simply unable and unwilling to wade through the vast amount of information. This site, which has been on the World Wide Web since 1993, almost 20 years, is dedicated to the current Earth changes as gathered from human alien sources. It offers predictions of the continuing pole shift, areas that will be most affected, scenarios that have and are continuing to play out with startling accuracy. It shows mounting evidence of Nibiru Planet X with stunning photography from all over the world, human sources. It lists a 7 of 10 scenarios in which it details tectonic plate movements, flooding and the reasons for them, continental shift. It goes into great detail how this information has been withheld from the public, why it has been done so, and who is behind it. It explores current political situations, wars, disinformation, and conspiracies. It explains events that are reported but don't make sense, the reason behind this disinformation, and the true explanations. In short, it is a site that is not for the weak-hearted and pretty much lays out the coming apocalyptic nature of the pole shift, what we can expect and how we can plan for these events. It does not sugarcoat the information and paints a grim future for the planet Earth inhabitants in the coming years. This to me is why it has gotten such a bad reputation among many well-informed people recently, because when a person begins to recognize the accuracy of the predictions that have occurred, coupled with the predicted events that have been presented, it requires a fundamental change in our perspective of the world we live in. Okay, my friends, you're all invited to join this channel by subscribing to End Times 20 23, which is a totally free subscription service. You're also invited to add me as a friend on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. If you'd like to drop me a line on my blog, by all means do so, or if you'd like to join one of my circles on Google+, then the links are under this video. All this week's news links can be found on my website, endtimes23.com. There's a live link near the end of this video. Well, that's your lot for this week, my friends. I do hope you've enjoyed the show. I'll be back with you in a week's time with another edition of Cosmic News. So until then, this is your informer signing off, friends. I'll see you on the flip side. This is Informer News, your voice of the people. Timeline is Sunday the 28th of September 2014. Welcome along, my friends, to another edition of Informer News. Coming up in this week's On the Planet. Okay, into this week's news. This first report originates from ZetaTalk.com, the ZetaTalk newsletter, issue 411, and this was posted on Sunday, August the 17th, 2014, titled Ebola Outbreak. Ebola, a hemorrhaging virus, is indigenous to Africa and has few outbreaks, but they are greatly feared. It has a 90% death rate untreated, with survival, even when treated, less than 50% deadly, and no vaccine exists. Per the Zetas, Ebola came from the swamps of Central Africa. The 2014 outbreak is the most broadcast. Whistleblower warns that scientists, astronomers, and people in the know regarding the imminent arrival of Planet X Nibiru have been bought off, as well as being threatened into silence, as to betray the elite would mean certain death or imprisonment and losing their golden tickets to the survival bunkers. Plus, Ebola warning, the death toll will rise to 20,000 victims within 9 months. Also, a new warning goes out. Yellowstone supervolcano is on the verge of exploding back to life. And Pine Gap, one of the most secretive US bases on Earth. Its original home was swamps, the last place humans live in when they are given a choice. Waterlogged, full of snakes and lizards, crawling with bugs, humid and unable to grow crops. The virus spreads in its normal method, but as the insects and rodents indigenous to these swamps are not adapted to other biospheres, the virus stays in the swamps. This virus not only refuses to be tamed, it is also now running free. Too late to put the cork back in the bottle. Africa is having her revenge on those who would own her. She has made herself undesirable. She has placed poison in her loins. Serious, the death rate the highest and involves the most aggressive strain of Ebola. ZetaTalk description, the 15th of the 7th, 1995. It is indigenous in Africa, but the spate of recent flare-ups are because it is now also widely dispersed, no longer lying in the swamps, infecting lizards and snakes, which have little contact with humans, as they are not the food of choice, now resident in other hosts such as rats and cockroaches, which mingle freely among humans. Why did Ebola not spread in this manner earlier? It did, but in an area not frequented by humans.